Friar, Boston, though, now 7-0 following a loss in the playoffs. Golden State, meanwhile, is also unbeaten in the 2022 postseason following a defeat. And the Warriors have won at least one road game in their past 26 playoff series. So game 4, Friday. What adjustment do you anticipate the Warriors making in order to try to even this series up?
I think the big thing for them is taking away the secondary scorers. They talked about it in the first game. They did it in the second game. And look, I know that it was more Marcus Smart kind of stepping up. And yes, you got some stuff from Al Horford and a few other guys. But I think when they managed to stop Boston's secondary scorers, it not only impacts those guys from putting up points, it doesn't give Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown the outlets that they're looking for in situations where they're trying to make that next pass, because that's when one of the biggest things for the Celtics throughout since they turned the corner, they have been much better about just making the next pass, trying to find that best shot, taking their time in their half-court offense. When they can't do stuff like that, they're not as efficient offensively. So, I mean, and look, if you go listen to Draymond's podcast too, he's probably going to tell you to do that too. It's not giving anything away, but that's probably what they're going to end up doing in game 4.
Hey, Whalen, too, something to keep in mind is when Al Horford rolled over Steph Curry's, I believe it was his foot, Curry said afterwards had some pain in his foot in the fourth quarter. I mean, how much do you think a potential Steph Curry injury changes this series?
If Steph Curry is not, close to 100%, I think that tilts it probably in favor of the Celtics to a point where Golden State can't win the series. I think that's fair to say, right? Especially with how Golden State played in Game 3. I know Andrew Wiggins had 18 points, but it was relatively inefficient. He was only 1 of 6 from 3, had 3 turnovers. It's kind of been a two-man show so far. And like Nick said, Boston is getting contributions from, Marcus Smart stepping up with 24, 7, and 5, Derek White, Al Horford, Grant Williams throughout these playoffs. Golden State, I think the main difference between this team and the other, pre-Kevin Durant Warriors is, guys like Andre Iguodala, like he's a shell of what he was in 2016. Sean Livingston, Barbosa, like the great role players on those teams, they just don't really have that right now. And Jordan Poole is certainly capable of being that guy, but he's a little too inconsistent at this point. They didn't get a whole lot from him in this game. Didn't get a whole lot from Otto Porter. Gary Payton, it looks like, is not even capable of shooting a basketball right now. It's strange to watch because there's a lot of times last night where Golden State has 2 guys on the floor, whether it's Looney and Draymond, whether it's Draymond and Gary Payton, guys who just don't want to shoot the ball, are not interested in shooting the ball, and it's really bogging down their offense. So, if all of a sudden Stephen Curry is now limping around and he's at 70, 80%, I mean, he was at 100% for most of this game last night, and they ended up losing by double digits. So what does that tell you?
Jeff, the Warriors were the team to make adjustments in Game 2. Udoka and the Celtics made adjustments last night. Pressure defense. Celtics were more physical and aggressive. How do the Warriors answer back now? What's their answer to that in Game 4?
They have to do a better job on the glass. I mean, the secondary scoring is a huge issue, as both of these guys have touched on. But at the end of the day, the Warriors were out-rebounded 47-31 and then 15-6 on the offensive glass. And honestly, it felt like more. Boston is the bigger, more physical team, but there are still ways to keep them off the boards, and the Warriors need to figure that out in Game 4. I'm sure we'll see if Steve Kerr makes some lineup adjustments. We're going to get more Kevon Looney. I think that that's almost a guarantee at this point. We saw that he was able to take Boston off of the boards in Game 1. Obviously, the Celtics still won that matchup, but he was a major force. Will we see some Juan Toscano-Anderson? Will we see some Jonathan Kuminga? They're going to have to roll out some bigger lineups in this matchup, especially if Steph Curry is hurt. And yes, bringing in all of those guys takes away from your secondary scoring because none of them can shoot from the outside. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you can't corral the rebound off of a stop.